Doctor, give me the news. I got a bad case of podcasting with you. I mean, was that not great?
Yes.
I'm here with a very special doctor. Yeah, I feel like I'm the only one that will sing on this show.
I always appreciate it when you sing.
For years I tried to get Brandon to sing Santa Baby.
Yeah, true.
And we never did get it. But don't
Santa
worry,
Baby,
because
I
I'm here to
know.
sing. Who wrote that? Do you know that song? Like, who is that?
I have no clue. I guess you should have done that research.
Okay. Nope. We don't do research here. I'm going to introduce everyone to Dr. Shiloh here, but real quick before that, I'm going to welcome you to episode number 244 of Tennis Podcast. I'm Nick Emel, and this is the show where me and my guest sidekick host guess the other's top Tennis list. I want to give a special shout out to our Tennis Pod Plus members who are listening to this episode early and ad-free. And among those Tennis Pod Plus members is my guest sidekick host today, the one and only Dr. Shiloh. Shiloh? Doctor?
That's right. A proud Tennis Plus member.
For years now. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dr. Shiloh, as you know, Dr. Shiloh, but as the listeners might need to be reminded, you are the host of one of my favorite podcasts, LA Not So Confidential. Been listening to it for years now. Can you briefly remind the fine folks at home who you are? What are your credentials? What are your day job? Anything you want to share that will help them get to know you?
Sure. So I am one half of LA Not So Confidential. We're a forensic psychology and true crime podcast. So I'm a forensic and clinical psychologist in Los Angeles. I've done a lot of different work in that realm, mostly working with people coming out of prison or going into prison. I've done prison prep. And then I currently am a police psychologist. So I do a lot of different things in that realm, but definitely switch gears from working with criminals to the police. And prior to all of that, I was a police officer myself for a few years. I spent almost 10 years in law enforcement, 7 of those years as a sworn patrol officer before I went back to school. So, and that is a little bit of a segue into our list today. So just a little hint for you at the top.
Before you give your list, who's more interesting to work with, the criminals or the police officers?
You would be shocked at how much overlap there is in terms of why I see people. I mean, it's very different because all of the offenders were being forced to be there. Really, it was part of their probation or parole. It's really nice with law enforcement where I work in that they can be self-referred, just come in like getting a therapist outside of the department. However, we do have people that get directed to us because there's some sort of on-the-job issue going on that's impacting their work. So it is a little similar in terms of, that small percentage of folks that really aren't pleased to be in my office.
Yeah. And who could blame them?
I hear you. Yeah.
Well, and obviously, if you're listening to the show, listener, you might recognize Dr. Shiloh's voice. She's been on several times. We did the best true crime documentaries back on number 161. We did the highest prison rates by country on 185. And most recently, is actually a year ago, though, 197, you brought me the list of the best disaster films.
Yes.
So I'm
right.
very anxious to know what you brought me today.
Okay. Well, it's back in the entertainment realm. It does have to do with police and law enforcement. So today we are talking about the most critically acclaimed police TV shows. So these are police procedurals. Oh God, your face already.
Just
not a cop show fan?
I mean, are we including Cops, like the show Cops in this?
No, so this is like fictional, scripted drama, procedurals. It's, not going to be any Cops reality TV. Think critically acclaimed, like really good stuff, not churning out a gazillion CSI episodes every year. That's not really critically acclaimed. So these are going to be some pretty good ones, some pretty good shows out there. I'm sure you've heard of them. I'm sure you've seen some of them. So police procedurals are actually a very popular type of television show. I don't know why, but just as a society, especially here in the US, we like shows that revolve around first responders or the medical field. And there's plenty of police TV shows that have been on throughout the years, but only some of them get critical acclaim and high ratings.
So what are you basing your critical acclaim on?
This is a list by IMDb, and so it's going to be based on their rating scores. We have scores. The highest score is going to be a 9.3, And the lowest score, which I have 10 on this list, is an 8.1. So
that's still really good.
It is still really good. My info is just taken from Wikipedia, but mostly this is going to be IMDb rated. I can just give a little background on police TV shows. So some of the earliest, actually, one of the earliest started as a radio show. So that was Dragnet. And that ran from 1949 to 1957. That was an American radio series on the NBC radio station. And it enacted cases of this dedicated LAPD detective, Sergeant Joe Friday, and his partners. And so that ran for a very long time. You actually can still download podcasts of the original radio show, which is pretty cool to go back and listen to that old-timey detective stories. But then it ended up turning into a television show called Dragnet that ran from 1951 to 1959. I think another really early popular one, even though it was a little bit later in the 60s, was Adam 12. So that was also LAPD based, but it was more focused on the patrol officers and the calls for service that they handle rather than the detective work. But hallmarks of police shows are things like high stakes chases, character subplots, sharp detective work, and then kind of the dark side of what that job does to law enforcement officers, which I could tell you is true a lot of times. We're talking about a lot of high exposure to trauma.
Yeah.
And some of these detectives, their work-life balance is not great. So, they end up putting a lot into these jobs, and that certainly does show in some of their mental health issues and family issues and things like that. But also with police TV shows throughout the years, a lot of them do take on a lot of modern day social issues as well. So when done right, it can be a really powerful, almost like a little time capsule of what was going on in that decade or that time period. As a police officer, and I think any profession and professional can say that there's pros and cons to television shows about their own profession.
Strippers.
Like you either love them or hate them.
Professional strippers?
Well, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. They're probably like, no, that does not happen like that.
Yeah. Well, you're probably right.
So I've been very picky and choosy on the cop shows that I watch. I don't watch very many because it's just like sitting there and going, oh God, this is so ridiculous. Can't really enjoy them. But there is one on this list that is my absolute all-time favorite. So I'm glad it made it.
I have one in mind. I wonder if it's the same one that you were just referencing that is one of my all-time favorite shows of any kind. I'm going to try to save it though.
Okay. And I promise I'll try not to fuck up any actors this time. I know the last time I heard from all the
Oh yeah, well, I remember
listeners.
It was you said
oh God.
God, what was it? It was Men in Black, right? You said that.
Yep.
What was the actor you said? Do you remember?
I can't remember who I said it was now.
Dr. Shiloh.
But
got one little detail wrong. And that's the thing about the show. Like whoever brings a list brings like 20 pages of notes or whatever of all these true things. And then the one thing you get wrong is what you'll hear about. And it was such a minor thing.
I'm like that as a listener too. So
yeah, we all do it. Yeah.
I dish it out, but I'll take it too. I did my research. Hopefully I'm good this time.
And I was going to comment too, we mentioned like strippers or police officers watching a show about their industry or their field and being like, that's not really how it works. When they come out with the podcasting drama series, like the not True Detective, but True Podcaster.
Well, there was one. What was the one with, God, now I don't want to guess her name. Shit. It was on Apple TV and
I didn't see it.
I'll remember her name later, but it was a murder mystery, but it was also a podcaster, true crime podcaster. And I was like, no fucking podcaster can afford that house that she lives on the bay.
Like, what I was going to say is if they ever in any show about podcasters talk about how much money they make, then it's immediately discredited.
She had this like a gorgeous colonial home, like right on the water. Yep. And I'm like, nope. All right, can't watch the rest of this.
If they replace that with like DMs on Instagram from podcast promoter that will get you 10 million downloads for free,
right?
In broken English, then that is more authentic.
Yeah, exactly. We'll have to be consultants when they decide to make the shows.
Okay, so
do you watch police procedurals? I mean, have you liked them over the years?
It's not like a genre I seek out or anything, but I've definitely watched a few. I mean, this is strictly TV shows, right? No movies?
Totally just television. Yeah. I don't want to give you more than that right now. Maybe if we need some hints down the line.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
Let me give kind of maybe one that's not on top of mind for people, but the Andy Griffith Show is about a cop. Is that too, like, are we talking strictly?
I would say, okay, so that's like a feel good / drama / comedy family show, right? I would say think more gritty.
Yeah, okay.
For sure. Yeah, okay, let me give you a range of dates.
Sure.
The oldest one is from the 80s. 2 are from the 80s, and everything else is going to be 2000s to present.
Miami Vice.
Oh man, I wish. It was so good, but no.
I've never seen it, but I know that was big in the 80s. Okay, well, you mentioned like CSI and stuff. Are there anything like that?
Mm-hmm.
CSI, is that one?
There's no CSIs. There's not, again, like those ones where there's like, there's no Law and Order, SVUs, there's no NCISs. These are, you really, like, that's kind of like churning them out, right?
Yeah.
Quality isn't great. I mean, people love them,
critical
don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, quality shows that some have some big names, some were just beloved for their time. There's no chips on here. Sorry, I also loved that, but just give me something. We got to start somewhere.
Okay. I was trying to save this because I think it might be number one, but I'll just go ahead and say it since I'm struggling, and that's True Detective.
Sure.
True Detective has to be near the top.
True Detective. Tell me about True Detective. Your relationship with True Detective.
My relationship with True Detective. So Brandon, actually, my original sidekick host, he nagged me for a long time to watch True Detective season 1. And I finally did. I think season 1 of True Detective is the best singular season of any TV show, maybe ever. Season 2 and 3 had their pros and cons, but season 1 is like near perfect.
Oh, flawless.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. So
True Detective actually comes in at number 2 with 8.9 is their rating. So it had 3 seasons. A 4th season is coming out, which I'll talk about in a second because I have very high hopes for it. Roughly 2014 to early next year will be the next season. So this 10-year span, it's an anthology, right?
Yeah.
So each season is a different police drama exploring a new crime. It streams on Max currently. It's created by Nick Emel, and the first season revolved around 2 detectives from the Louisiana State Police, played by, of course, Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey, and their hunt for this occult serial killer that spanned over 2 decades.
Mm-hmm.
So you had that like sort of going back in time nexus to all of this that made it a really cool watch. Just wonderful, wonderful television. I mean, you're right. This is hard to top.
It's so good. And that's one thing that made, like, seasons 2 and 3 are not nearly as critically acclaimed. And it's because they're stacked against season 1, which was like lightning in a bottle. Matthew McConaughey in particular, just so good in that. Well, maybe we're going to talk about this, but what did you think of seasons 2 and 3?
So season 2, I think, again, because it came out, it was that sophomore season, right? People were very, very disappointed with season 2.
I was.
So this one shifted to California, and there were officers from Vince Police Department, California Highway Patrol, and Ventura County Sheriffs, which were all trying to cooperate together to uncover the truth behind, like, basically a corrupt city manager's murder. And so it had Colin Farrell, Rachel McAdams. It was kind of cool to see her in like a different. Oh yeah, Vince Vaughn was in it. Taylor Kitsch. I wanted to be good. I love shows that are based in Los Angeles just because I get, you kind of get to see your city through different eyes, but also you recognize stuff. I really had high hopes for it, but it was pretty unimpressive.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's
kind
of
of bad,
terrible, but I've only watched it the one time. It was definitely the only really memory I have of it is being disappointed.
Yeah.
Season 3 I thought was better.
Yeah.
A step in the right direction. Still a far cry from season 1. And season 4, Jodie Foster, I think, yeah?
Oh my gosh, yes. So season 4 is set to premiere January 14th, 2024. So it's actually the first season to carry a subtitle. So it's going to be called Night Country. Oh. And it's set in a fictional town of Ennis, Alaska, which is already creepy, right? but it follows the investigation behind the disappearance of 8 men from a research station up there. And it stars Jodie Foster and Callie Reese. So please don't disappoint us. And Jodie Foster, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
She's going to be great.
Yeah, she always is. It's funny too. Well, not funny, but interesting. The first season was 2014, 10 years to get a 4th season. It's just kind of interesting how, I just thought of another guess, but I'll hold on to it.
Oof,
unless you're ready.
All right. No, I'm ready. That's all I have for True Detective. Sounds like we're at least on the same page with the first one of how much we liked them.
Talking about Alaska got me thinking about Cold, and that made me think of one that could also be high on this list, although I don't know if it beat True Detective, and that's Fargo.
Oh, Fargo. Yeah, obviously,
one.
The television show, the FX. Yeah, FX puts out a lot of good stuff. I will say there's something else here from FX, but...
No Fargo.
Fargo did not make the list. Let's see. I have the top 15. Let me just check. Didn't even make, the top 15. Did you watch Fargo? I had not.
I haven't watched the latest season, and I think as we're recording this, there's a current season on.
I believe there is, yeah.
So I watched the first, I want to say 3 seasons, and they're all really good. They're like a step below True Detective, but still really good.
Okay, so pretty dark.
Yeah, dark, good acting.
Yeah, nice. What else you got?
I've never seen this. It's on my list to see. I think it's a police-esque show, but maybe you'll correct me. And that's, I just lost the name of it. It's a really famous HBO show. I always want to say Weeds. It's not Weeds. It's
Weeds was Showtime.
What's the big HBO show that is like?
Does it take place in Baltimore, PD?
Yes, Baltimore.
Yes, The Wire.
The Wire. Thank you.
Right.
I don't know why
not
I couldn't remember
Weeds.
that.
Wire.
Yeah. Is that number 1?
The Wire is number 1.
Right.
Yes. So the rating is 9.3 on IMDb. It ran between 2002 to 2008, and it is based on Baltimore PD. So this one stars Michael Kenneth Williams, who just died a couple of years ago. Dominic West, who people probably know from The Affair or The Crown. Idris Elba, a young Michael B. Jordan. Wendell Pierce, who's amazing in anything he does. He was in the latest Jack Ryan series, but he's been in Selma, Malcolm X, and a ton of other people over the 6-year span that this show ran. So it's an American crime drama created and primarily written by author and former police reporter David Simon. And the idea for the show was loosely based on the former experiences of his writing partner, Ed Burns, who was a homicide detective and a public school teacher. It ran for 60 episodes. It's one of the most talked about and groundbreaking shows about police procedures to ever air on television. And the show covered a lot of ground and a lot of different points of view regarding the war on drugs, specifically in the Baltimore area. It was really, I think the critical acclaim comes from the fact that they didn't shy away from things like critiquing American politics and the effect that that has on the inner cities. When The Wire aired, the war on drugs was not really critiqued on television that much. They were very brazen about doing this on such a controversial social topic, but The Wire also discussed race in a way that other police shows shied away from, making it, again, unique yet sort of controversial. But yeah, fantastic show. And talk about gritty.
Sounds like you've seen it.
Yeah, I have. I didn't watch it at the time. I went back and watched it later.
It's one of those shows. Sopranos was another one.
Right.
Where it took me years to finally watch Sopranos. The Wire's like that. I'll watch it eventually. I have not watched it yet. I've heard amazing things. And I meant to ask this for True Detective, but I'll ask it here.
Mm-hmm.
How close to reality would you say, in your experience, these shows are to what you've seen in law enforcement?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's hard because it's so relative, like, to where the location is, right? And from what I understand, and officers I've talked to around the country, that The Wire was really, really good and really close to reality. Of course, with creative liberties that all of these shows have to take. True Detective, I mean, it's like that crazy once in a lifetime, not even for every detective, but once in a lifetime case of this occult serial killer you're hunting, So it's a little bit more fantastical in that way. But, depicting issues that detectives who throw themselves into their work deal with, the substance abuse that, is the way that a lot of them deal with their demons.
In True Detective Season 1, there's a part near the end where Rust, who's played by Matthew McConaughey, he has a storage unit, and inside the storage unit is just basically like a little detective's office, right? He has files in there and stuff on the walls. You ever known someone like that?
No.
Come on.
I'm sorry. It's cubicles and the most boring thing that you would ever imagine seeing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe someone has a weird detective shrine at home.
Detective
But
shrine.
I think that's just an art director's choice for.
How dare you call it a weird detective shrine when that helped catch the killer?
Okay. I know. Everyone thinks that, there's the pegboards with the string and the pictures and oh wait, hang on. This is a visual. I have a mini
I see it.
crime scene board that I bought off of Etsy.
It's just like a decorative
way too much
thing.
money. Yeah, just hangs here in my little podcast studio. Yeah.
But isn't life more fun if we imagine that those boards really exist in like every detective's
Heck yes.
storage unit?
Of course. Okay. I'm a very visual person. I need whiteboards. I have a desk right now that actually is a whiteboard, so I'm writing
that's nice.
your guesses on here as we go.
Oh, I
don't need to waste paper.
Damn. Good idea. Yeah, okay. I'm going to remember that. Hey, I mentioned the show.
So you have 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, go ahead.
I know, I'm just too good at guessing. I can't help but guess the top few even when I try not to.
I know.
I mentioned a show that it's probably not on this list because I don't know if you consider The Sopranos a police show. I mean, it's really a mob show. Mm-hmm. It involves a lot of police elements. Detective.
Yeah, I mean, it's not on here. And I was kind of thinking about other shows too that like Dexter, right? You could argue that it's a police show, but it's also mostly just about a serial killer. He does work for the police department, but that's not on here. Sopranos is not on here. This is really, think like based in a law enforcement agency. So there's a few on the LAPD in here. There's one on the U.S. Marshals Service. NYPD, Chicago PD, FBI.
Justified.
Yes, Justified is on here.
Number 4.
Man, you're killing it. Yes.
I knew it.
Justified is number 4 with a rating of 8.6. This ran between 2010 and 2015, and it is based on the U.S. Marshal Service, which I think I actually took their test when I graduated from school. I wanted to see what the federal law enforcement agencies' tests were like. So I took the written test for the U.S. Marshals.
Me too.
But never pursued it any further. You too?
Yeah, I aced it. And they begged me to join the force. And I just said, I got this podcast thing going on.
I cannot. Right. Yeah, obviously. So this is streaming on Hulu. And this stars Walton Goggins. And as a hint, he shows up on this list again.
Oh.
And Timothy Oliphant. And the series revolves around the inhabitants and culture in the Appalachian Mountain area of eastern Kentucky. So specifically Harlan County, where many of the main characters, I guess, sort of grew up. But then it also features Lexington, Kentucky, which is where that local U.S. Marshal office is out of. And the series has 78 episodes. So Justified, interestingly, was one of the few sort of neo-Western shows that focused on the traditional role of the sheriff from the old Western movies. So it kind of brought that vibe back. And in this, U.S. Marshal Raylan Givens plays by his own rules. Isn't that always?
It's always that, yeah.
There has to be a certain like little quirk to the lead character. But he really feels like it's his responsibility to bring to justice those that want to harm his town. This really revived, again, like that genre that many TV viewers had forgotten about and had a forgotten interest about the Wild West setting.
Yeah, I love a good Western. I'm actually surprised I haven't watched this yet. I will. Well, that's the fucking problem, Shiloh, is there's too much damn good shit on TV. Like, there's a billion shows I want to watch. Who's got the time? And plus, sometimes I like to rewatch shows that I've already seen, so that takes up time. Anyway, I'll watch it someday.
No, for sure. So I think this was originally on FX.
I think so.
And so now it's streaming on Hulu. But you're going to get old school shootouts, dangerous terrain. Again, kind of gives you that nostalgic feel that other shows have shied away from, kind of moving towards like the technology of law enforcement. And then this year, there was a limited sequel series released called Justified City Primeval. So there's even more for you to watch if you like.
Is that on the list though? that spinoff?
No,
Okay.
it is not on the list. Nope.
Is there any other Western-esque shows on here?
Ooh, good question. No, there is not. There are, you haven't gotten the older ones yet.
Yeah.
But there are no more Western types. And there is a comedy on here.
Oh, what's that show called? Andy Samberg's in it, I want to say. Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Where do you think it's at?
Wow.
For a
All right,
comedy.
let's see if I can nail it here. 6. Did I get it?
Stop it. Yes.
You can't get a top 10 list past me.
You have this list in front of you, don't you?
I do not.
And then meanwhile, I supposedly have a doctorate and I come on here and I like blow every list that you're like, oh no, percentages of incarcerated people around the world. What?
Yeah, that was like, you should have nailed that. That was
so
pretty rough.
hard.
My biggest
Brooklyn
takeaway from that
Nine-Nine.
one, though, real quick, my biggest takeaway from
yeah.
that incarceration episode is how awful we both were at geography. We're like,
oh
we
my
think-
God. Like at some point I pulled up a map and I'm like, what is wrong with me?
I know.
I mean, I've traveled a lot, but Jesus, fortunately nowhere I'm going to be incarcerated.
Yeah, I have an excuse. I'm just a dumbass guy, but you're a doctor.
Yeah, so they say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine's number 6. So this has a rating of 8.4. It ran from 2013 to 2021, based, of course, on a detective unit at NYPD. However, the 99th precinct isn't really a precinct. So that's a fictional precinct of theirs. I know.
Well, I can't watch it now. I don't like that bending of the truth.
This streams on Peacock, of course, starring Andy Samberg. And until I did this, I thought it was Sandberg, but it's Samberg. Okay. Didn't know that. But
yeah, I think I might have said Sandberg too. Like Sandberg. I think I did that.
Yeah. So it's Andy Samberg, Terry Crews, Melissa Fumero, Stephanie Beatriz, and Andre Brothner and Chelsea Pettarini. Tons of comedic guests over the years. I mean, you know, it's like The Office. It's just a million people if you look up all the folks that have popped in there. So this is one for folks who are looking for a good police show, but also want something lighthearted and not super gritty. So yeah, it's set in NYPD's fictional 99th precinct and basically hinges on very vibrant characters that make up this team. So you have Andy Samberg's character is a very quirky detective, Jake Peralta. He's a skilled detective, but very immature. His favorite film is Die Hard, which he references all the time and tries to relive scenes from that in his regular work. But he's unrelenting and confident, even when he's failing hard, and is a thorn in his supervisor's side because no one ever takes him seriously.
I feel like people that love Die Hard to that extent, Die Hard is a personality. Like some people say that about like The Office, like your whole personality is The Office. People say that about Die Hard. And Dr. Shiloh, I have a secret for you. Don't tell anyone.
What's that?
I've never seen Die Hard.
What is wrong with you? Oh my gosh.
But here's the thing. I feel like I don't even need to see it because I like know the whole plot just from like living in the culture. I like absorb all the...
When you come to LA, I will take you to Century City so you can see the building that this all took place in.
Okay.
It's here in LA. Yeah. So actually, full circle to The Office. One of my favorite episodes is, so in my job, I am a consultant to the crisis negotiation team. So whenever our SWAT team goes out to a call where there's a barricaded suspect or a suicidal subject that we're going to conduct negotiations with, a psychologist rolls out in real time to help with this. So there is an episode where there's a hostage negotiation with a criminal who is barricaded in a jewelry store. He's basically a jewelry thief.
This is in the show, right?
This is in the show. Yeah. And so he asks for Jake Peralta by name. And it ends up the thief is Craig Robinson. So Daryl from The Office. Yeah. So there's this whole like hostage negotiation theme throughout this with Andy Samberg and Craig Robinson. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
Good episode.
Like I said, the theme of this episode today is going to be like all this good shit that I've heard great things about, but I haven't seen yet. But I want to see. Like Brooklyn Nine-Nine's another one.
Yeah. Worth streaming on Peacock for sure.
That's the only comedy?
Yes, only comedy.
Wow.
Hi, listener. It's me, Alex Johns. If you're anything like me, you just can't wait to know the next episode topic of Tinish Podcast. It keeps us up at night. We toss and we turn, wondering, hoping, dreaming. Fortunately, I found a solution. It's the Tinish Podcast newsletter. Each month, I get this free newsletter delivered right to my inbox, and it tells me right there what the next month's worth of Tinish Podcast episodes will be all about. That means that me and the other newsletter subscribers knew today's episode topic about a month in advance. I have more good news. The newsletter also comes with Dr. Buster's exclusive blog, behind-the-scenes updates from Nick, discount codes on Tinish merch, and more. The best part is this monthly free newsletter can be yours too. Just go to tinishpod.com/newsletter, enter your email address, and you're in. It's that easy. Again, that's tinishpod.com/newsletter, or just click the link in the show notes. The only problem I have now is tossing and turning, waiting for the next Tinish Podcast newsletter.
Let's talk about the 80s for a minute.
Let's do it.
Guide me here.
So there's two. I'm going to say one, I totally know it, but it was probably from like my parents watching it. My parents were also cops, by the way. So, and then the other one, I think I had heard of, but I think it's a little bit more obscure. So that one takes place, it's based in Chicago PD. But any guesses for 80s?
Isn't Hawaii Five-0 a cop show? I don't know if that's 80s. And that's
It is, but it's not on here.
Okay.
No. And there's always been a ton of cop shows. That's the thing, like Magnum PI or, things like that in the 80s. But these are definitely going to be more drama, more, again, gritty. I keep using that word, but.
Who's the star? Do I know the star? Or stars?
The one that's more obscure to me stars Dennis Farina. He's been in a ton of different things. You want to look him up?
Yeah. Dennis.
And Anthony Dennison. But if you put both in there, then it'll probably pop up. But Dennis Farina's been in a ton of cop shows, been in a ton of mob shows over the years.
I'm struggling here. Just tell me.
Okay. Let's go with number 7. The one starring Dennis Farina is called Crime Story.
Okay.
And
is this the more well-known one? Or the other one?
No.
Okay, this is the obscure one.
No, this is the more obscure one.
That makes me feel a little better.
So Crime Story, it has a rating of 8.3, and it aired between 1986 and 1988. It is based in Chicago, so Chicago PD. It's for purchase on Amazon currently, and this is number 7.
Okay.
Even though it aired in the 80s, the show occurs in the 60s.
Okay.
Yes, wrap your head around that.
Yeah.
So essentially, the storyline is that Lieutenant Michael Torello heads the major crime unit and tries to stop organized crime rings from running rampant in Chicago. And unlike other police shows, most of Crime Story focuses on one villain who's trying to become Chicago's big mob boss. And his name is Ray Luca. He's the significant opponent to this detective, really like a young sort of quote unquote rising star in the organized crime world. Since they have this storyline that goes throughout all the seasons, fans became really invested in seeing Torello take down Luca, making Crime Story feel like kind of this epic superhero story and a police show together. So I think that uniqueness to it is probably what made it pretty acclaimed back in the 80s, but then also sticks around to this day as being one of the better ones.
Now, the villain Luca, at what point did he go back underwater to his Pixar Disney family?
I'm sure at some point, because I think this show actually toggles back and forth between Chicago and Las Vegas. I mean, so I don't think there's any bodies of water he could have gone
there's
under,
water
but he
by
could have
Chicago,
gone around.
lakes.
I mean,
yeah.
So there's, kind of a back and forth. But if you like organized crime, mob type stuff, this might be a good one. Maybe it's almost a Sopranos, but from the cops' point of view instead.
Okay.
With kind of this, that the person's probably going to meet their end somehow once this thing wraps up. But kind of that long game cat and mouse.
Does Luca also obsess over ducks in the first episode?
That's a great question. I've never seen this show.
Okay.
So, so you have 1, 2, 4, 6, and 7. So that was, again, Crime Story was number 7.
Why don't you do a quick recap of what we've guessed already, what I've guessed?
Yeah. So number 1, The Wire. Number 2, True Detective, obviously based off that first season.
Yeah.
4 is Justified. Number 6, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And number 7, Crime Story.
Let's get rid of the other 80s now. So who's in that one?
Okay, so there's the name that I know from this. Actually, hang on. Let me make sure I don't mess this up.
Let you double check that. We don't want to repeat.
I don't know how many people are into 80s cop shows or listening to this, but someone will, correct me. So like I said, this was one that was on in my house because my parents watched it. And I think it really, for the 80s, was a pretty good one.
I'm looking at 80s shows on Google. 21 Jump Street.
No,
TJ Hooker.
It is not. Oh man, TJ Hooker was so good. Heather Locklear.
Street Blues.
Hill Street Blues is it.
That's it. Okay.
That's it. So this has a rating 8.2. And this, any guesses for a number?
If it's 8.2, it's got to be number 8 or 9.
It's number 9. Yeah.
Knew it.
Yeah. So this started in 1981 and ran for several years. So it's streaming on Prime Video now. It stars, it has a huge cast because it just kind of takes place in a lot of the storylines are all throughout the department. So it's not just like one detective necessarily. It stars Michael Conrad, Daniel J. Travanti, and Michael Warren. So it was one of the best police procedurals in the 80s. And it also pushed a lot of social constructs, took a lot of risks during its 6-year run on TV. The show chronicles the lives and staff of a single police station located on Hill Street in an unnamed large city. And again, that was sort of done on purpose so people could kind of plug it into wherever was relevant to them. But Hill Street Blues showed police officers of varying races working together, which wasn't expected from a TV show at that time.
Early 80s, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Showrunners wrote storylines that really challenged the image of police officers by showing corruption within the Hill Street Blues Police Department. But by not specifying where it took place, again, audiences could kind of lend this to their own experiences. Hill Street Blues employed what was at the time, and I think this is what made it different, a unique style of camera usage, and especially for weeknight like television productions. So they would film close in with action cuts rapidly between stories. And rather than studio floor cameras, handhelds were used to enhance the style. So this, along with sometimes they would have like kind of overheard off-screen dialogue happening, it gave it this real like documentary feel to it. I really think that, plus probably the writing on the show, is what made this one stick around so long and be critically acclaimed even today.
Yeah. You mentioned it was on in your house growing up. When's the last time you watched it?
Oh, God. I've never sat down myself and watched an episode of this.
Okay.
Yeah. Hill Street Blues just has that like classic cop TV show ring in my head every time I hear it.
Hill Street Blues. Yeah. I know nothing about it. I've definitely heard the name, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It's interesting. I always wonder how these shows would stand up if they were watched today, because I would think and I hope that when these IMDb ratings are given, they're given with the context of this came out in a different time, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Still be interesting to see how they hold up through today's eyes.
Yeah, for sure. So we need 3, which is my personal favorite. We need 5,
8, and 10.
8, and 10.
3 is your personal favorite.
3 is my personal favorite.
What channel or station or network?
It was also FX. One of the producers on it was also someone who did Sons of Anarchy. So it totally has that vibe. And the Mayans. So it was kind of the trifecta of his shows.
It's recent.
2002 to 2008.
Man.
Takes place, supposed to be LAPD.
That's why it's your favorite. I don't know. What is it?
It is The Shield.
Oh, The Shield. Fucking, of course. The Shield.
Did you watch The Shield?
No, but it's another one I should have known because I hear about it so often.
You got to. I swear you have to. Like, if there's one on this list. I know I said that
Shield.
about...
More than The Wire.
The Shield. Yeah, I like it more than The Wire.
Okay.
I think it's a little faster for me. Like The Wire's a slow burn. The Shield is like nonstop. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Okay.
It's streaming on Hulu now, and it stars Michael Chiklis, Walter Goggins, who is in Justified, And then Kenny Johnson, CCH Pounder. She's been in like...
Pounder? I hardly know her.
All right. So this show was created by Sean Ryan, who did a number of other successful sort of law enforcement adjacent shows like Lie to Me and SWAT, and Kurt Sutter. So he's the producer that did Sons of Anarchy and The Mayans. So it does have like that legit grittiness to it that you get with those other shows. Also, a shit ton of great guest actors in all the seasons. Glenn Close, Michael Pena, Forrest Whitaker, like just really great people that come into this show. It follows a corrupt police officer, Vic Mackey, and the unit that he leads called the Strike Team. It was originally advertised as they were going to call the show Rampart. So based on the true life Rampart police scandal of LAPD. You guys are at all interested, you know, the whole Rafael Perez and the intertwinings with perhaps Biggie Smalls and Tupac and Suge Knight, Death Row, like all of that with the LAPD officers that overlapped and worked with them, which is a side note, one of my favorite true crime stories, you know, that I hope they get to the bottom to at some point. So really, it was this strike team that Vic Mackey leads was kind of loosely based on some of the Rampart police scandal.
Okay.
As a part of LAPD, Vic Mackey's corruption provides commentary on the LAPD's past of corruption and mishandling of cases. The Shield was one of the first shows to really depict police as corruptible, like these are legit the bad guys, like from the first episode. You're like, oh my God, these cops are horrible, right? But then in some sense, they're very charming. You find yourself like rooting for them. They have good qualities about them too, which I think is great. I mean, no person is all good or all bad. And that's kind of the uncomfortable gray we have to sit in sometimes, especially in talking about psychology and true crime. But yeah, sort of the characters break the law to serve their interests, but also to...
The ends justify the means sort of thing.
Yeah, right. They are putting away bad people. They're just not doing it the way that you should. And they're not doing it legally most of the time. So the Shield really received a lot of praise for pushing the boundaries of what a police show can focus on and how cases end. Like sometimes they don't always get wrapped up nice, neat, and tidy. I will also say that this is one of my favorite shows because the season or the show finale was really good, which is really hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to get something satisfying at the end when one of your favorite shows is wrapping up, and this did it.
Well, you're selling me on it. Damn.
Yeah.
But how do you feel about the LAPD representation?
I mean, again, it's a lot of creative liberty. Bad things have happened in police departments. You know, there is a systemic problem where a lot of corruption could have been cultivated. You know, I think it's important to talk about things like that in our entertainment depictions. Of course, they're going to be a little bit more above and beyond. But I don't know. Some part of me is like, I don't know. Maybe we don't know how deep this went or conspiracy theory, you know, truth is under all of this.
Right.
So I think that's the interesting part of watching something like this. And then as an audience member, you know, you get to make up your own mind about what really goes on out there, or at least question it.
Yeah. Well, that's an important distinction too, is these,
For sure.
you know, anything you consume is not necessarily meant to answer questions. It's meant to get you to open up your mind and ask questions.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to experience things, watch things, listen to things outside of your own comfort zone. And we're all guilty of that at times, like staying within our safe space. But yeah, I don't know what my point is other than that's just an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, for sure. So we have another one that's LAPD based. We have an FBI based one, and we have an NYPD based one left.
So I usually don't do this, but since I'm struggling, I'm cheating a little bit and looking on Google. I just did a search for police shows. I didn't say best or worst or highly acclaimed. So
Thank
here's
you for your transparency.
White Collar.
White Collar, yes. What number do you think it is?
10.
It's number 8.
Okay.
So White Collar has a rating of 8.2. Not a show that I've seen.
Me either.
It is streaming on Hulu. It stars Matt Bomer, a highly intelligent and multi-talented con artist, forger, and thief. So White Collar takes viewers down a different path: art crimes, counterfeits, heists. And the show revolves around this art thief. The character is Neil Caffrey. He manages to escape jail to seek out his girlfriend, Kate, who I believe is played by Tiffany Thiessen. Not Tiffany Amber Thiessen. She dropped the Amber. Tiffany Thiessen.
Same person, though.
Same person.
Okay.
Same person. We just need to grow up a little bit from Saved by the Bell days, okay?
Hey,
I guess we can do that.
Yeah. Hard to blame that. Mm-hmm.
You know, she's supposed to be taken a little bit more seriously. She's not Kelly anymore.
Yeah.
So he escapes jail to go find his girlfriend, and he gets caught by the FBI. So the lead special agent in the show is Peter Burke, who is also his longtime nemesis, of course. And they work out a deal where Neil gets to stay free as long as he helps Peter apprehend other criminals. So that's the gist of the show
sweet
here.
Deal, though. Like, that's like every criminal's dream is like, once I get caught, just let me inform the FBI. Sure.
Yeah. Why not? Why not? So yeah, it kind of balances police work with these elaborate cons, right? And then Caffrey's charm is, you know, part of the piece that they say is worth the watch, the acting. And it's really made it one of the best cop shows around. But I had never watched it.
Same.
Honestly, if you told me White Collar, I wouldn't have been able to tell you any plot to this.
Well, there's somebody wearing a shirt, collar.
Yes.
Typically white. That's all I could tell you.
Well, and what do you think about white collar crime? Is that interesting to you at all? Because that's kind of, you know, a
it's
genre.
Interesting. It's not as interesting to me as, you know, kind of the more, I don't know what you'd call the opposite of white collar.
Crimes against persons.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
First impression, I kind of feel that way too. And then I listen to some of these podcasts that do just white collar crime,
Swindled.
con stuff. Swindled is so good. And I'm like, why does this make me feel more sick than the serial killer story I just listened to? Like, fuck these people who are screwing over these people.
Maybe it has something to do with, well, this is hard to get into, but I'm talking to a psychologist here. So the white collar crimes are often crimes that most impact the poorest among us.
Yeah.
Right? Although serial killers could also do that. Like, they also kill, you know.
Yeah, it's taking advantage of the most vulnerable, but in
a
different way, right? Like financially vulnerable, whereas the violent crime stuff is usually, you know, someone who can't like physically protect themselves. Not necessarily, but I know I'm just making generalizations. But yeah, I mean, there's like an extra amount of manipulation that has to happen and just like zero empathy. It's just, I don't know. It's almost worse to think about.
Sorry, the white collar crimes can also affect millions of people at a time.
Totally. Yeah. I was going to say it's almost worse to think about people surviving and having to come back from the destruction that this person has done. If that makes sense. I mean, yes, of course they've survived, but it hits different.
Yeah, it hits different. They're both bad. Can we agree on that?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
You don't condone either, just to be clear. Do you condone either one? Which one do you condone? You don't condone.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to have it on the record.
So we have one that is, again, like kind of like white collar. It's a person teaming up with
The Sinner. That's the
law
show I was trying to
enforcement.
think of. Is The Sinner on here?
Oh, no, but God, it should be. That was so good.
Yeah. Okay.
Great guess. Great guess.
Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah. So we have a show that has a person of a different profession teaming up with law enforcement to solve cases. And then we have another one that is just like your patrol boots on the ground officer show.
I know this isn't on here because you said no comedy, but Reno 911 could have been on here, right?
Oh, God. Yeah, it could have been. It should have been, actually.
Yeah. All right, well, help me out. I don't want to drag it out too long.
Okay. The patrol one is LAPD based, and this one is Southland.
That's the name?
You heard of Southland?
Southland?
Yeah. Yes.
Maybe I have. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it, really.
Okay. So any guesses of where this one lands?
Southland.
5 or 10?
This is the boots on the ground. We'll say this is 10.
This is 5.
Ah, knew it.
Nice try, but you know, 50-50.
Shh. No. I got it.
So this one has a rating of 8.5. It ran between 2009 and 2013. It is very elusive. You can purchase it on Amazon. And I don't know why that is. It's always been really hard to just find streaming somewhere. But this has a really good cast as well. It starred Regina King, Michael Cudlitz, Ben McKenzie, and has, again, because it focuses on patrol and detectives and even some other first responders, fire and paramedics, huge cast. It was relatively short-lived. I think they did one season that was on network television, and then they ended up taking it somewhere else for the following seasons. But it's a procedural, again, takes place in Los Angeles, another one based on LAPD. It focuses on the lives and jobs of the police officers, but this one, from what I understand, had a lot of consultants on it that were working in Los Angeles Police Department, so it tended to be more realistic, almost akin to the movie End of Watch.
Okay.
Did you see End of Watch
No,
with Jake
I know what
Gyllenhaal?
that is, but I have not seen it.
Michael Pena.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's I hear people kind of compare these a lot. So Southland used a unique form of storytelling to show how each case unfolded. So what they would do is each case was told from a different point of view, whether the officer or the victim, or you could have the training officer and you could have the trainee. And this showed that each officer experienced and remembered each situation a little bit differently, just as people do in real life. So viewers had to kind of decide where the truth was between these stories, making it feel a little bit immersive for fans.
Yeah. I was looking. It was on TNT. You've seen this.
I did not watch it all the way through, but I watched a couple of seasons.
Yeah. Is it true that if something comes out, could be police procedural, could be disaster film or anything else, and it's based in LA area, there's a decent chance you're going to watch it?
There's a decent chance.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much based here.
I know.
I mean, all the big cities, right? Like,
yeah.
But yeah, if it's in one of my preferred genres, then I'll probably watch it.
Okay. Well, for this last guess, is it Criminal Minds?
No, it is not Criminal Minds. This is a relatively newer one. Well, I can't even say that. God, what year is it?
Right now? I don't know.
What year is it right now? All right, I'm going to give this one to you.
Okay.
So the last one is Castle. Have you heard of that?
Oh, I don't know. That's not ringing a bell. Castle.
Okay. So when I give you the plot, it might ring a bell for you.
Okay.
So this one aired between 2009 and 2016, streams on Hulu, based in the NYPD, and it stars Nathan Fillion along with Stana Katic. Castle takes a bit of an imaginative approach to police shows by really weaving in what they call storybook-like elements to each case. So it follows Richard Castle, who's a known Casanova, I hate that word, a ladies' man and a millionaire, of course, but he's also the author of crime books.
Casanova, Nathan Fillion. Or Richard Castle,
so
sorry.
Yes. So basically he's this author of crime books, and he gets called in to consult with the NYPD when a murderer starts killing people.
That wouldn't happen,
in the way that Castle does in his books.
Okay.
So they're like, what's going on? What's the connection here? I have not watched this. It sounded too far-fetched for me.
I agree.
So they call him in, and then essentially he gets like instantly fascinated with Detective Kate Beckett, and she kind of becomes his muse as he continues to write, and he helps her out on cases. And supposedly he has like these intuitive skills as well. It's kind of like they're mashing everything into one. No wonder this is number 10. But it has episodic cases as well as sort of an overarching plot line that relates to the histories of the characters.
Okay, so episodic cases. So sometimes cases are resolved within an episode.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I would say probably the majority of these have their overarching plot lines, but you got to have something happen in each episode. Yeah.
Well, this was a network show, I believe.
I believe it was. Yeah. I don't
ABC.
I don't watch a lot of network shows.
Yeah, I don't either. It's usually a sign that it's not great.
Yeah.
I think this might be the only network show on here. Maybe Crime Story and
Hill Street Blues. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Agreed.
I think, but everything else has been, cable or streaming.
Yeah. Anything else you would have added to this? Anything that you watched
Well, I've mentioned a few.
Yeah.
So Fargo, The Sinner. I think a case could be made for The Sopranos. I think a case could be made for Dexter, although I don't know if it would belong in a top 10 list.
Yeah, I do too. Bosch is really good. Bosch
Bosch.
is another LAPD one where they have very good consultants. I mean, it's done by Michael Connolly, who's written books forever about Detective Bosch. But it's very good as well.
Okay.
The other, so I have 11 through 15 on here. 11 was The Rookie, which also stars Nathan Fillion. But I think he comes into LAPD as like a 40-year-old rookie or something.
He just can't get his Fillion of police roles.
Correct. Number 12 was Law and Order. 13 is Bones.
Oh, Bones.
14 is Blue Bloods. And 15 was SWAT.
Okay. Heard of all those?
Yeah. Yep. So going back through, number 1 was The Wire. Number 2 was True Detective. Number 3, The Shield. Number 4, Justified. Number 5 was Southland. At number 6, we have the comedy Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Number 7, Crime Story. 8, White Collar. 9, Hill Street Blues. And 10, Castle.
Yeah.
I'll take the top 6. I'll recommend any of those.
Yeah, the top 6 really, there's a big drop off, I feel like, as far as at least just the amount I hear about them, because I haven't seen all of them. But I hear about those top 6 quite a bit. Well, Southland, maybe not. But those bottom 4, I don't know. They seem kind of random on here, but I'm no expert.
I agree.
Well, Dr. Shiloh, this has been a great list. You were justified in bringing it.
Thank you.
And I don't want you to put up your shield, and I'm not wearing a wire, but I do want you to let our listeners know how they can listen to more of your voice and your show.
I think you need to be arrested for what you just did there.
Yeah, but at least I wouldn't have to ask you which country has the highest incarceration rate.
True.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. You should be
That would be
arrested
super helpful
and
for
locked
me
up
as
in the Philippines. Thank you for having me back. People can find LA Not So Confidential wherever they get their audio. We also have a TikTok and an X account and a Facebook and a Patreon. So just Google us and you can find a lot of information on our website, including I have links to every episode where we do guest spots, including all of the 10-ish episodes. So that's on our website.
Listeners, check the show notes for a link to that. LA Not So Confidential, I said it before, I've been listening to it for years. One thing you guys have started doing, I don't know, maybe the last year or so, is the documentary reviews that have been really helpful in helping me cope with what I see in a documentary. There was one in particular I remember, the Natalia Grace one.
Oh, good Lord.
I remember watching that and being like, I need someone to process this for me. What did I watch?
There you go.
And I went to LA Not So Confidential, and you guys like, it captured my every thought so perfectly. So.
Oh, good. I'm glad, because every time we do this, I'm like, why the hell did we decide to do documentary reviews? I have to watch something and do research. Why did I think this was going to be easier?
Yeah, I wouldn't have recommended that for the sake of your work-life balance, but I do appreciate
as my podcast consultant.
Yeah, and some of it too is because you watch good documentaries and shitty ones, right? And you don't always know.
We do, yeah. Yeah,
but
exactly.
It helps people like me process what we've just watched. So I appreciate that.
Very good.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thanks, Nick. Appreciate this.
Yeah. Dr. Shiloh, thanks for coming on, and happy holidays to you.
Same to you.
Until next time, she's Dr. Shiloh and I'm Nick. Thanks for listening.